Members are right here. We're missing Jeff, but we can start already.
And we're down one. All right. Good evening. We'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the City of Helotes Planning and Zoning Commission. It is May the 4th at 7 p.m. I will ask the commission secretary to please call the roll.
Greg Michelle.
Here.
Jason Whiteman. Here. Ron Hazen. Ann Carroll.
Here.
Alex Blue.
Here.
Jeff Wade. Richard Hall.
Here.
Mario Rios.
We don't have Mario yet.
He said that he would be joining virtually, but I have not seen him sign on.
Great. And we also have with us the city secretary, we have Myron Mendoza, city administrator, Cindy Massey is on the line as the liaison, and our new development specialist is here as well, Michael Davis. Thank you for being here. And welcome to the city. And Jeff Wade is walking in, so good timing. We will start this evening with the public hearing, which is to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a request by the Methodist Emergency Room for a specific City Council approved use permit to allow a medical institution other than a hospital on property zoned overlay district B3, overlay district at 12285 Bandera Road. We will open the public hearing at 7:01 p.m. And am I correct, Selena, that the only comments of participation we have is the one letter that was circulated to us from a nearby resident?
Correct.
Okay. Has anybody on the commission not seen that letter? I'm sure we're all on the same page.
I don't think I have.
Oh, is it possible to project it?
I did not print out a copy, but I can go ahead and read it because I do want to enter it into the minutes as record. The comment comes from Mr. Brian Planto. He lives in Helotes Crossing. He doesn't have any objections to the development. However, he did want to bring forward that he has some concerns on the lighting. And it appears that this is existing lighting that was there when First Choice was in business. It's the lighting in the rear of the property, and he states that the lighting shines into his home and into his bedrooms. So we would just need to make sure that it's full cutoff, and I want to make Methodists aware of that concern.
Great. Thank you. So those will be the only comments entered for the public hearing, so we will close that at 7:03, and to be clear, that's because we're not allowing general public to attend this meeting, so submissions were welcome online or in written format. So having closed the public hearing, we will skip to citizens to be heard, and there are no citizens to be heard this evening, so we will move to item 5 on our agenda, which is discussion and action on the April 6, 2021 minutes, which were circulated to everyone to ensure that they were accurate. If there are any corrections or edits or changes, please call that to our attention, or we can have a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Rob.
I move to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jason on the second. All in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All approved, so these minutes are approved. And Selena, will you let us know when Mario does appear so I can make sure that we include him? All right. Now we'll move to item 6 tonight, which is discussion and action on the request by Methodist Emergency Room for the specific City Council approved use permit to allow a medical institution other than a hospital on property zone B3 overlay district 12285 Bandera Road. And I presume we have representatives from the applicant here this evening?
Yes, front row.
You two guys, okay. Is there any, Selena or Marion, anything in addition to what we have in our packet? Introductory remarks you care to make? Okay, great. So what we will do here is we will open up the conversation. I presume there'll be some questions for one or any of you to get us started. So I will open the floor, and I'm going to start. Ann, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can't hear Selena very well, but I can hear you, yes.
All right, and I've got the mic near me, so I'm going to start in the room, and then I'll come back to you, okay?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that sounds good.
Before we start, there is a caller in the room. It might be Mario.
Yes. Hello, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm here. Mario is here.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Mario. We're starting with we're on item 6, and we're going to start in the room, and then we'll come back to you for any comments or questions. So I open it up to the folks in the room. Are there comments, questions, items you'd like to discuss in particular regarding this item? Please speak up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have just two kind of questions / areas of concern. And forgive me, I know this the building was previously approved by a previous version of the board. I believe that we have a couple of new members on the board that were not around for the first go around. So maybe second guessing some things that were said at that time. The first question is about the ambulance route, and I know that we have a very nice buffer between what appears to be the rear ambulance entrance and the closest adjoining single-family homes on the west side of the building, but it seems like there are a couple of single-family homes that are very, very close to the building on the south side. And I just had a question about the ambulance operation. Is it, do these things, and I've driven by this every day, but I've never seen an ambulance at the station, but do they come in sirens blasting and lights flashing, or is there, some protocol about, making sure that that's not noticeable when they approach the building?
Okay, so why don't we get if one of you all could address that? The best way to do it, you mind coming up to the mic? And for the record, your name and business address.
I am Kevin Richter. I work for Memphis Hospital. I'm Administrative Director of Operations. And what address do you want?
Whatever makes sense. Just a business address is fine.
Okay, it's what is the address here?
No, for your
Oh, I'm at 929 Fairbanks Park. That's actually my personal address. Okay, I'm out of Birmingham, Fair Oaks, Texas, where I'm from. So, to answer your question, I can't answer that totally clearly. Typically, yes, when an ambulance and EMS will come in, they'll have sirens, but typically the sirens will be used at lights, turn in areas like that, dangerous intersections. Once they get to the location, typically the sirens will go off at that time once they're on the property. So hopefully that answers your question. That I don't see where they would have a siren on, any need to have something on when they get on the property. They can turn it off in, and even the lights once they get there.
And which, there's two entrances, so are they more commonly approaching from, I guess it would depend on which direction they're coming from, which entrance and which route around the building they would take?
We haven't got that far, but more likely they're going to take the side street, which I guess is the west, I believe, border of it, to go to what we will want to use as the EMS entry on the south side. So they'll come down that road. The intention is to go down that road because it's the quickest route. You're running somebody by EMS, you want to get somebody to their location as quick as you can. So going through the front entry, through the parking lot, just tends to take up more time. So, the route's going to be down the side road and then around the back of the south side.
Okay. You might want to stay there in case there are other questions. Anybody? Yes, Alex.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank you, sir, for this. I have a question, and you may not be able to answer this, but I'm curious as to, well, one of the answers that we received from the prior occupant of the building was that ambulance service was not bringing folks there, that it was basically somebody brings their family member or someone there, but it would not be coming from ambulance or EMS. From that answer, am I taking it that yours is very different than the prior occupant, that you will actually have EMS and an ambulance deliver people there?
No, it's not totally all the same. I mean, it really depends on the acuity of the patient that they're picking up. Typically, yes, they would probably go to the hospital, because if you're going by EMS or ambulance, whichever you want to call it, you would go to a hospital. But if it's not that emergent, then they may go to this ER if know, if it's conducive to timing is what it is.
Because the previous owner's answer basically said they were not allowed to receive ambulance. That if somebody had already called an EMS or an ambulance, then they were not allowed to receive those. They also said that they were not allowed to keep anybody in the facility more than 24 hours. And I didn't know that was my second question. Is that the same kind of operation you have?
Well, that's correct, man, because, you know, we're actually open under a hospital license too, where the original first choice that was there, they weren't operating under a hospital license either. So we have to operate differently. We're held by codes even. That EMS, that emergency entry in the back, we have to have that. We actually have to have a sign that we're trying to put on the road that is where the culvert and everything was put in. We're bound by the state to do that. So I can't say 100% sure we will or will not have an EMS because EMS can pull in there at any time. We may not even know about it. Now, typically we will, especially if it's San Antonio, the fire department, somebody like that, because we work so closely with them. Now, other EMS services, depending on where they're going to go, we could have somebody pull in there. But we've got to understand our licensing works a lot different too, because we're open underneath. We're bound by the state now, whereas first choice was not. So that's why we actually have applied for the permit also, building permit and everything, because we have to go through that, because we have to do so much work in there to get this to where it meets standards for the state too, for our government bodies.
Thank you. And that's really where I was leading with my question, was to establish that they said that the only people who could come would be the people who brought themselves there. And of course, we never saw anybody there. I'll go on record saying I was the only one then on council that voted against it, as this is the wrong place for that facility that they have. And I hope that your facility works differently, because under their rules, it was destined to failure, because they couldn't have anybody except somebody who came in. And if they're that well off, they can just go down the road to Med Clinic, or they can go to 3 or 4 others within 2 miles, and that was the end result of what happened to them. So I encourage that you have a different set of guidelines that you're working with that might be more successful. And again, obviously, the questions that the citizens at that time, when there were a number that had objections, was the lighting and the noise. And then, of course, the question of the time of day when those things would occur, obviously, being immediately adjacent, which is why the city has an overlay zone district, is because it is immediately adjacent to people's backyards. So that obviously needs to be taken into consideration. I know we're talking about the other issue later. So those were my questions. Thank you.
Richard or Jeff?
I guess, Mr. Chair, I do have one question now that you kind of brought up what you're operating under. So here it says, request by Methodist Emergency Room for a specific city council approved use permit to allow a medical institution other than a hospital on property zone overlay district. But you just stated that you are operating under hospital guidelines. Are considered a hospital?
We're not considered a hospital. It's actually, because we have to work under that license over what it is. So it's, I don't know how to put that. Brandon, you want to explain that a little more? You probably know a little more detail than me on that one.
Sure, so I'll introduce myself. Brandon Webb, I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategy and Business Development for the Healthcare System. My address is 15727 Parkway, San Antonio 78249. So as a freestanding yard, since we are a healthcare company, it is we are accredited with CMS, which is Medicare, as well as Medicaid. That's one of the delineations between us and the way that the previous owner operator operated that facility. So we take on whether a patient is covered with insurance, if they're self-pay, if they're indigent, they're under Medicare, they're under Medicaid, or they're under Blue Cross. But as a hospital operator, we're held to a higher level of standards. We're accredited through the Joint Commission. There's legalities associated with CMS, with the state that we must operate under, whether it is a outpatient facility, whether it's a hospital, and so those are the guidelines we operate under. So is this a hospital? No. but we are held to a higher level of standards through CMS, through Joint Commission, through the state. And so that's one of the delineating factors between the way we operate these and the previous. I hope that.
What would be the longest amount of time that you actually would house a patient there?
I believe, and I would have to verify this, I believe the longest we hold patients would be 23 hours. That's considered an observation. An overnight stay would be possible, but it would have to be under that 24-hour period. And that's typically how we operate our ambulatory surgery centers and stuff.
Thank you.
Go to the commission members who are on the line. Pam, do you have any comments or questions?
I just wanted to clarify, this is going to be a general ER. I saw one time that said children's ER, but it sounds like there is going to be a children's portion. Is that separate, or is it going to be just generally for children and adults?
Yes, ma'am. It is for children and adults. There's a listing of clinical protocols that we follow. I believe it's through the American College of Emergency Physicians for us to be able to treat pediatric patients, so children 17 and under. So we follow those guidelines, and as long as an individual off-site ER can operate under those clinical protocols, we'll market and advertise as such. So yes, this will be a facility that will be able to take patients of any age, and it's similar to the other 7 that we operate in this market. So it'll be both adult and children.
Okay, thank you.
Mario Rios, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was similar to what Ms. Ann just asked about. I noticed that, and I don't know if this is the time to ask it, but I noticed that part of the agenda item is there's signage that talks about the children ER like it's being emphasized, but I'm understanding through the representative that it caters to all audiences. Is that correct, sir? And because there's a reason why there's signage that's just signifying or emphasizing children's ER as well. That was my question. I wanted to find out, is that the focus or is it widespread?
No, it's widespread. So it's as small as a newborn infant to someone in their senior ages. So yes, we take all comers. We do have branding that will be located on this building, which is Methodist Children's, which is the brand that we use for our children's hospital in the medical center area. But that's just to signify that pediatric patients are welcome and that we have the clinical protocols as well as the clinicians that are able to take care of children.
Thank you. Okay, at this
one more question, Mr. Chair. Just one more question. I just wanted to ask about, and you might have already said this, but I want to just make sure I got it. Is this open 24 hours a day, this facility?
Yes, sir. 24/7, 365 days a year.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, unless there is an additional comment or question, I would invite a motion from the commission. Thank you.
Actually, another question and a half, I would say. Sorry, so this is not a conceptual approval, but there was a comment from the public about the lighting. And I was actually trying to look at the photos in the packet. I did not even really see any lights that seem like they may be troublesome on the side of the building, with perhaps on the rear. I don't know whether or not some of them may have been stripped off when the previous occupant moved out. But just as kind of a point of order, how do we, was there a way for us to kind of address that and also be mindful that I know there are technical requirements, and I think the gentleman may be able to address it. There are technical requirements for a lighting level window of the ambulance bay, so I'm presuming that there'll be some dealings with that, and maybe that may even have to change from what's existing in the building. So you can address that relative to that concern comment.
I'll answer that. This is Kevin Ricker again for you that are on the call, I guess. Of course, picture you pulled up represents the front of the hospital. I think what I'm understanding the question all is the side we cannot see, or one of the sides is in the back where the actual ambulance EMS entry is. The only sign I'm aware of, I think that we're actually presenting for is the one that says ambulance on it.
So I think, if I can interject, I think his concern he's raising is about the non-signage lighting, which is not part of what we're dealing with here at the moment anyway. There is no conceptual design plan to speak of.
So is he talking about the parking lot?
So I'm assuming it's the freestanding, those are parking lot lights.
All of the,
You can come up and some people can hear you. Tell us who you are.
I'm Terry Shearhart with Executive Signs. I'm here to talk about the signage portion, but I'll try to answer the question that's been brought up about the lighting. My understanding is that building was approved. Methodist is remodeling the interior. They're not doing anything to the exterior. So there's no plans for them to add, change, alter any of the exterior lighting that's in the parking lot or the building that was not there before. Does that answer the question?
I think so.
Mr. Chairman, could we put on our deal that we verify that all lighting will be full off?
Well, I mean, that's a staff issue, really. I mean, we're really dealing with the use portion of this. So they will have to comply with the existing lighting regulations. And if for whatever reason they're not appropriate, then they'll have to be fixed. But, that will be done with our staff level.
So the half that I want to also add, this actually kind of gets into the next issue if we want to punish the next issue, we have to do that. The previous occupant had in that glass tower in front, I know we recall that it was backlit, I believe it was blue. And I was concerned a little bit that may be part of that the public comment that we got. Is that going to remain in place with the new occupancy that you all are proposing?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we weren't changing anything with that.
So it's going to continue to be lit up.
But again, I have to remind the commission we're dealing with use, and that wouldn't really fall into this. If it's tied to a sign, we can talk about the sign, but if it's the interior, if you're describing an interior lighting, that would be outside.
Well, it was actually, my comment was because it was, to my mind, it was almost an exterior light. Like that it was projecting out of the building. It was light directly behind the glass facade projecting outwards. And when I saw that comment this afternoon, it occurred to me that I wonder if that's part of the concern that gentleman's having, is that light is projecting into his house. I'm not sure which residence he has.
But again, I think that would be a staff issue to take up if that is a nuisance to a particular resident, or perhaps to be aware of that. But I don't even know if that's the case. I don't know if you do know that. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the resident's comment was about the parking lot lights.
Okay.
No signage lights, no interior lights, it's specifically parking lot lights, and I'm not familiar with the rear of this property, I'm not even familiar with how it lights up at night. But what Mr. Chairman said is correct, staff will look at that.
All right, thank you. At this time, I would like to invite a motion for this request. I remind you, this is a recommendation item for City Council.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I move to recommend approval by the request of the Methodist Emergency Room for a specific city council approved use permit to allow medical institutions other than a hospital and property zone overlay district B3 OT located at 12285 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas.
Second, is there discussion further on the motion of Jeff or Ron?
No, sir.
Anyone else on the motion have a comment? So the motion is to recommend approval of the request by Methodist Emergency Room for the specific city council approved use permit to allow a medical institution other than a hospital on property zone B3 overlay district 12285 Bandera Road. All in favor of the motion, including those on the phone, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed, so this motion is approved. It will go to City Council on May the 13th, I believe. So we'll be back here. Thank you all. Don't worry, we're not the signs are next. Discussion and action on the request by executive signs for approval of signage for the Methodist Emergency Room 12285 Bandera Road. This item is divided into 4 parts, 4 different sections. Depending how things go, we can keep them separate, we can roll it into a single motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
who would prefer
If you prefer with that, that's fine, there's variances involved. So let us take this up. Anything additional than what we already have? We have a representative from the sign company here who can answer questions. I'm sure there will be some. So open the floor to questions from the commission. Anybody in the room with questions regarding the signs? I think for discussion purposes, I'm comfortable talking about A, B, C, and D, whichever you would like. We'll do them as separate motions.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Please, Jeff.
a few questions. First of all, for documentation purposes for next month's agenda meeting, they are listed as item number 9, A, B, C.
I
Item.
did that on purpose to see if you were.
Nothing gets passed. Nothing gets passed.
You passed.
Okay. On item C2, where it has the sizing signs. First off, my question is, why are you taking the street number address off of the doors where it's prominently right now under canopy lit, moving it to black numbers to the side of the building? That's not going to do it.
Are you talking about the flat cutout letters on the building?
The numbers only,
The address
the
number?
street address.
Because that's consistent with the other 5 freestanding Methodist ERs that are in the Saratoga metropolitan area. And because of the canopies, it's difficult to read underneath them and so forth, so we moved the address numbers out onto the facade of the building so they can be read during the daytime.
I disagree with that because I've read many times a day. It's
Okay, well, you asked why we're doing it.
Okay. That's fine.
The other 7 facilities they have, so we were just making this consistent.
Okay. So on C3, on the height of the sizes, it does, I believe this also might be a typo because I don't believe that they're approximately 8 feet above the ground. It does show on the PDF page 40 that the children's ER sign looks to be above 20 feet. So if that is correct, what do we need to plan for that?
Jeff, where are you getting that it is above 20 feet? Where do you see that?
So if you're on the PDF on page 40,
He's correcting what he's saying.
25. Got it.
That is the exact same place that the previous logo was on the building. And I didn't see where there was a variance issue to that 20 feet when I reread the previous variance that was approved by council, but it may have been something that was just over. But the location on the building, if you go to the picture on page, maybe you see it. On page 2, there was a previous logo that was on that stone tower area about the same place, house portion that was placed. So it puts the top of it right there at that 22-foot mark for the architecture.
Thank you, Jeff. So that would require a third variance for item 7C. As it relates specifically to height.
so the next question is on item C4. The number sign. And I believe that this is something that we need to address as a commission and possibly, once again, look at the sign ordinance. As far as what we are defining as a sign. Back in January, we had a business come to us for approval of a sign, and it was brought to us that we needed a variance because it was two signs, because it was two separate tracks, two races. If that's the case, because it was business and then telephone on North Bandera Road. If that is the case, and if staff is seeing signs as being one consecutive raceway, then technically, the front of the building is four signs. The logo, the name, the word Helotes, and then children's VR. So,
So the issue with the SA tree service was the spacing. And I think we discussed that at that meeting. The spacing one of the commissioners even asked the sign contractor, is there any way that you can bring the spacing closer together? He said no, because it's a metal building. So the issue there was the spacing made it look like it was two signs. My interpretation here is the spacing isn't an issue. It looks like one sign.
If that's the case, I just think that we need to, in the future, maybe define better what is going to be a sign and what isn't a sign.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Others here in the room with comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I just have, Mario, we just have a quick comment, really more than a question, but it's related to what I said earlier. When I see the plan for this, again, this is a comment. My first thought is, I think that this is a children's emergency center only. I don't feel like I can go there, only because of that children's signage there, which is important because we got to cater to children. But I'm just putting it out there as a Helotes citizen and part of the commission that I guess word of mouth will correct that, but signage-wise, it looks like this is just for children. I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually,
Yeah, hold on just one second.
okay.
Yes, I'll address that for you.
Sure.
Okay, so, and I know that this is fairly new to the citizens of the San Antonio area, but if anybody's watched the Spurs game or anything recently, Methodist is running ads. The Methodist ER specifically deals with the freestanding ERs. And it's easy when you read the logo, and that entire sign is not four different signs. That's one logo. That is their branding for this business and these 7 businesses. The children's ER is the branding for the children's ER side of Methodist hospitals. This is a joint branded building because they're providing joint services in this building. If you went to the northeast side of Bexar County, you would not see children's ER because they're not operating the children's ER inside of those freestanding clinics. The one at 151 in Detroit, 1604, the one at Days Valla at 910, this one here on Bandera Road are being operated jointly. Methodist ERs and children.
All right, thank you.
Does that answer that?
I mean, that's a branding issue.
It is a branding.
Oh, Ann, go ahead.
Oh, actually, he pretty well answered it, and I was just going to agree with Mario. Having my children, I always took them to the Methodist Children's ER, and when I saw the signs there, you just focus on children's ER, and you don't think it's big enough to be for both. So, like Mario said, I was just saying, advertising-wise for Methodist, I know you can, it's all one thing, and Methodist has these different departments, but just letting you know, also as a citizen, that I would kind of think that. But then I would look at the other side too, but just letting y'all know that that may be a problem. I think you're going to get a lot of business because it's great to have a children's ER, and that sign is so important But yeah, as an adult, I might just like think that wasn't for me, but that's just a comment and just letting you know. But I know your explanation makes sense and I understand that. It's just like I just was agreeing with Mario, just letting you know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question about 9D, and it's really, I think, more for staff, and that is because the overage of the size, of the sign is within the 25%, is the variance still needed? Okay.
So you can do the variance not necessarily for the 25%. I mean, if you guys are moving on to the 112, you can certainly say a variance for the 112.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, before we make the motion, I do want to talk about that children's ER sign again, about the height above the ground.
Sure. That is, let's see, is it not?
Yeah, let's see.
So before we go to the children's issue, are there other comments over here on this side? Okay, Selena, go ahead.
Okay, so Terry, do you know what is the height from grade? Because here it says from the bottom of the ground to the top of the sign is 25. But what is the height from the ground floor to the bottom of where the sign starts? Because if it's below 20, there's no variance needed.
Well, okay, so.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, this is so small. Okay, so what I have to rely on are the architect's elevation marks from the original drawings that were furnished to us.
Okay.
These are drawings that the property owners furnished the Methodist that we were given to work from. And if I read this correctly, the actual top of the parapet where the sign is 22 feet above the slab grade. Okay, so I have to question where we struck the 25 feet from ourselves, because it appears it's just above it, but actually it's 22 feet to the top of it.
What I'm talking about is from the ground floor to where the children's ER text is.
Oh, that's below 20 feet.
Right, exactly. Okay,
So the variance is not needed there. Below, at the bottom where it says children's ER,
So you think that it is, the base of the children's is below 20 feet?
Right.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
I'm looking at, I'm sorry, here, page 6 of 10, which is 37 on my PDF. He's showing a red dimension struck as 25 feet from grade, but if you actually look at the text of the original architectural drawings, T period, O period, parapet, which is top of parapet, 122. If you follow that line, that actually just grazes the tip of that green children's sign. And that appears to me to be actually 22 feet to that point of the tip of the top of the children's sign.
And our children's sign looks to be total height of 4 feet 9 inches.
Correct.
And what I'm looking at, and what I use to determine above grade is from the ground floor to right here.
Probably around 17.
Yeah.
So, let's just, since we're all sort of trying to figure this out, I don't know that it has to be put in the motion, but staff will have to follow up and verify that, in fact, it is below the 20 feet.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah,
right.
it seems like-
You all are correct.
Yeah.
So it's 4'9" for 22 feet. So at the bottom of the sign. The sign will be made exactly like those details. Sure.
Except that what I read, according to the law of page 3 of 5, where it says under height, code, the top of the sign shall be below the lower roof line, and at a height of no greater than 20 feet above the ground. So according to this page, where it's quoting code, it says the top of the sign can't be above 20. I'm fine with granting a variance, but I think we just need to settle on whether it does or doesn't need to be done. But the code, according to the bottom of page 3 of 5 in parentheses, says the top of the sign cannot exceed the height of the sign or greater than 20 feet from the
I'm interpreting it differently. Yeah, the top of the sign needs to be below the lower roof line. I'm interpreting it as two separate things, not combined.
I agree, but that's what the word "and" says. The top has to be 1, below the roof line, and 2, no higher than 20 feet. I'm still fine with the variance, but I just think we need to grant one to be sure.
Okay.
Who wrote this code?
You guys did.
No, I know. There's always something that comes up. So, if the sentiment of the commission is generally supportive of the proposal, from staff's perspective, would you like us to grant a variance, request a variance that hasn't been requested, in order to ensure that we are in compliance with the code as written? What would make the most sense from the staff perspective?
Your motion would include the variance.
Even though it hasn't been formally requested.
Well, they're requesting the sign. So if they're requesting the sign within the application, and you're saying that it doesn't meet code, then within your motion, it needs to state the variance.
That's one of the variances.
Yes.
Because
You need to add the
two.
variance into C.
So there's already going to need to be a variance because of the number of signs and sign size. However, this would be an additional aspect of the variance. And that is on line C, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I could,
Please, go ahead.
the detail that I put together for the previous signage that was there and what this team requested, you can see before there were more signs on the building before than what we're requesting. The square footage is a little bit different. And also for the city to city, everybody interprets square footage a little bit different. So like at the city's request, we boxed in the sign on the front of the building and it showed 83.3 square feet. That's actually, in other cities, they box in each element of the sign. It's 48 square foot signage. So when we draw a big rectangle around the logo or something like this, you've got a lot of void area, and it's really a significant amount less than what we're actually showing when you look at the total. It's not like we're putting square signs up like you see on so many of the buildings here on Bandera Road, where they're putting up square signs on the facades of the buildings, so forth. So it makes a lot of difference.
Okay.
Surface area.
Thank you.
Okay.
And it should go without saying, but I'll say it, that it does, all these signs need to be fully compliant regarding lighting, and that, of course, is part of the code in terms of full cutoff.
Now, when you mentioned several times full cutoff.
I'm not with the sign, that's actually not a sign.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking the residents' concerns, so sorry if I know that. Are there, I think we're good, Terry, thank you very much. What makes sense at this point to me, for keeping this straight, is to go one by one, A, B, C, and D in our motion. And these again are approval items going to council. So I will start by inviting a motion on A, and then we will stop and pause and have a conversation about the motion if there is any, and then go on to B, C, and D. So invite a motion on item 7A.
Starting on motion 7A, I would make a recommendation for approval.
Is there a second? You want to read it out there? Just the A part.
The monument sign fronting Bandera Road pursuant to code ordinance of chapter 66 sign, section 66, commercial sign, single business use monument type.
Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Jeff. All right, so discussion on the motion, Jason or Jeff?
I'm comfortable with this one, it would require variances, so I definitely see it should be a no-brainer.
Anyone on the line with comment on the motion? Okay, so the motion, thank you. The motion is to recommend approval of the request by Executive Sign for the Methodist Emergency Room 12285 Bandera Road for the monument signs fronting Bandera Road pursuant to Chapter 66, Section 49, commercial signs, single business use monument type. All in favor of the motion, signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this motion is approved. Now I invite a motion on what will be 7B.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason. Jason got it.
Make a motion to recommend approval on item 9B, monument sign fronting, or 7B, excuse me, monument sign fronting Cedar Trail with 2 variances pursuant to municipal code ordinances, chapter 66 signs, business monument sign.
Is there a second? Ron on the second. So discussion on this item. Jason?
The base height, 2 inches to me, and we're trying to reuse the spot is fairly negligible in terms of the variance. I think that's the issue with that. And then the landscaping, look at the position of the sign, clearly it needs to go on that bridge, so we literally know where else to put it. I see it as a hardship that it is technically feasible to comply with that.
Thank you. John, anything?
No, that's good.
On the line, any comments on the motion?
No.
Okay, and to be clear, the variances relate to the height of base and the landscaping that Jason alluded to. So this motion is to recommend approval of the request by Executive Signs for the signage for Methodist Emergency Room 12285 Bandera Road, the monument sign fronting Cedar Trail with 2 variances pursuant to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, Section 49, commercial signs, single business use of monument type. All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
None opposed. This item is approved, and we'll go to council next week. All right, halfway there. So on letter C, 7C, and I point out here, folks, that on this one of the 2 variances, to be clear, is on the height, which is specifically requested to be 111.8 square feet is the specific request, which does exceed the 25%, so we can't automatically grant that. So I invite a motion on 7C.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend approval on item 7C, wall signage fronting Bandera Road with 2 variances pursuant to municipal code ordinances, chapter 66 signs, section 66 commercial signs.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Do you want
Yes.
to have a third variance?
That was on,
Yes, on the third variance as well.
oh, we were going to have, I'm sorry, pardon me, on the height of the,
Children's.
okay.
And Mr. Chairman, he needs to be specific on the size,
Go ahead.
what size allowance.
So-
If you're gonna do that 25%,
Yes, I think, well, was it where, forgive me, I don't know that page in front of me, was it 20,
Well, we're over 25% on letter C, so we actually have to specify the requested amount, which was 111.8.
no, for that one, it would be, the max is 97.13. The total that they're proposing is 111.80, but if you do the 25% of the linear footage of the building,
But we're not proposing the 25%, we're proposing what was requested.
oh, okay, you are?
On this one.
Okay,
Okay, so to clarify on the variances on this motion, could you please clarify on the size?
Yes. Yes, so it will be 3 variances with the height of the children's sign, the area of the full sign at 111.80 square feet, and was it number of signs.
All right, so is there a second on that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Let me give it to him. So, a discussion of the motion. First, Jason, if anything.
Yeah, I agree with the comments that we do need to revisit this issue. To me, it largely reads, at least the group on the left largely reads one sign think that this, if anything, would give a little bit of leeway to, just because of the services. To my mind, that we need to have this advertising in both, maybe both the ER and the children's ER. I think it's important as a parent. It's important for me to know that these are both types of patients, and to make that clear on the building. And also, obviously, that people that are coming there are stressed. It's typically a stressful emergency situation. We don't need things to be unclear or too small to be great. And if anything, if we give a leeway to anything, to my mind, it would be this kind of situation.
Thank you. Ann, any discussion on the motion?
No, except I agree with Mario, and maybe simply adding adults to one side and children on the other might help.
Thank you. Anyone else with discussion, comment on the motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do.
Yes, Jeff.
I just feel that we're giving the world here more signs than what is required or set by code and size more than 25%. I feel that they could make adjustments to the size of the sign, whether it be the logo, Helotes, something to get within that 25%.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So the motion on 7C is to recommend approval of the request by Executive Sign for the Methodist Emergency Room at 12285 Bandera Road for the wall signage fronting Bandera Road with 3 variances pursuant to Code Chapter 66, Section 51, Commercial Signs, subparagraph 2, wall signs, and those variances regard the number of signs, the height, the children's sign, and setting the size of the sign, total size of 111.80 square feet. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Mario?
Aye.
Yeah, thank you, sorry. All opposed?
Aye.
One opposed, thank you. So this motion is approved. And we'll go to council next week. We've got one more to go here on this one, so letter D is up. And I should point out that the requested variance on the size is 12%. We can grant up to 25%. 12% is what they are asking for to bring it to 112 square feet on the letter D signage.
Okay, I'll do the motion to recommend approval of item 7D, wall signage fronting Cedar Trail with 1 variance pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, signs, Section 66 through 6651, commercial signs, subparagraph D, wall signs.
And for that variance,
Mario Rios for a second. Mario Rios second.
thank you, Mario. And the variance at 12% over what is allowable. Is that correct?
Yes, at 12% over what is allowable. Sorry.
You got that, Mario?
Yes, sir. That works.
So any discussion of this particular motion for 7D, Ann or Mario?
No.
I'm good. Thank you.
Anybody in the room? All right, so the motion on 7D is to recommend approval of the request by Executive Signs for the Methodist Emergency Room 12285 Bandera Road for wall signage fronting Cedar Trail with 1 variance pursuant to Code Chapter 66, Section 51, subparagraph B, that's commercial signs, wall signs, and that variance is for size, total size allowed to be 12% over what is in code. All in favor of that motion, please signal aye.
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 Opposed? This motion is approved, and we'll go to council with all the others next week on the 13th. We're good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Move on to our next item here. Item 8 tonight, which is discussion and action on the request by Britain Lifted Installation for approval of a wall sign pursuant to Code Chapter 66, Section 51, Paragraph B. That's commercial signs projecting wall and hanging or in-on windows for wall signs for Realty One Blue Emerald at 11535 Dahl Road, San Antonio. Staff, is there any further information that we have here? Anyone representing?
I am.
Okay, if we have questions, we may not, so sit tight for a second. I open it up for to comments from the commission regarding the site. Anybody on the line with a comment or question regarding this?
No, I don't.
No question here, this is Mario Rios.
A good sign, all right, so, no pun intended. So we can take a motion on signs. This item, I agree.
I will make a motion to recommend approval of discussion and action on a request by Britain Lifted Installation for approval of wall sign pursuant to this ordinances, chapter 60 signs, section 6651, commercial signs projection, wall and hanging or in slash on windows. Yes.
Alex seconds that. So is there any discussion of this motion from anybody in the room or anybody on the line?
I'm sure applicants will be disappointed. It looks like it.
So the motion is to approve the request by Britain Lifted Installation for the wall sign pursuant to Code Chapter 66, Section 51, subparagraph B. Commercial signs projecting wall and hanging or in or out windows, wall signs for Realty One Group number located at 11525 Ball Road, Suite 101, San Antonio. All in favor of the motion, signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion is approved. And May 13th is your date to come back to council to do the final.
And you come back, it's mandatory to come back?
No, it's not mandatory, but
But sometimes it's helpful.
it's always nice in case there's questions. And
Thank you so much.
thank you. Item 9 tonight is discussion and action on the request by Keller Custom Signs for approval of signage for Bandera Oak subdivision located at the intersection of Access Drive and Bandera Road, including the residential subdivision entry sign pursuant to Code Chapter 6643 that defines residential subdivision entry signs and wall signs pursuant to Code 6651. Commercial signs, wall signs. I believe there is nothing beyond what we have here, right? I got the theme here. We're down to 3, so I don't know. Is this your item?
Yes, sir.
All right, so if we have questions. So I open the floor to questions on item 9, either part A or part B.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So in part A for lighting, you probably gonna have to answer this.
Oh, good.
Tell us just before you get started, name and business address.
J.P. Keller with Keller Signs, 1234 San Francisco Street.
So all you're gonna have is just stakes in the ground with lighting facing the sign. It looks like there is a conduit coming up in the middle of that thing. Does that go to someone else that y'all can't access, or?
So the landscape company that is doing all the construction of the neighborhood is actually doing the landscape lighting or the lighting elements. For us, we're just doing a non-lit and non-illuminated letter to the wall, to the monument structure wall. But it's to my understanding that they're just putting one of those solar on the top of like a landscape light into the ground. That is what they provided.
That is what they provided as well. And we will make sure it was made very clear to them that if there was any type of trenching or wiring done, that does require an electrical permit.
The light, like I said,
Say that
it looks
last
like
part
there's a
again.
conduit sticking up there.
The architect may have drawn that originally,
Yeah.
and to be honest with you, it was supposed to be lighted sign originally, like letters internally illuminate, but I think through budget, whatever, after that, they've gone the route of just some, external landscape lighting, that sort of.
So my point, I don't think that will even be necessary because it's in the middle of the parking lot that has plenty of lighting in it, so that's the only point. But, my other question is for part B. As far as, I believe this might be something new to us as far as having a wall sign for a subdivision. I don't know if code specifically states what wall signs are for. To me, it's a fence that's outlining the residential property and not a wall. I guess you could find it either way. So I don't know, I guess we just never had a wall sign before on a commercial residential place. I don't know if there's any place in the code that states that wall signs are for commercial purposes only or not.
No,
I don't think it's specified.
it doesn't define it,
It's a wall sign.
yeah, it doesn't define what, that a subdivision can't have it. I know, you're right, in city of Helotes, we don't, other outside of the city, that is typical for these new subdivisions to do that, coming into their subdivision, especially if their monument sign or their entry sign is further away from their entryway, and that's how this one is. So their monument sign or entry sign is a little further from actually where their wall into their subdivision is.
So to be clear though, this, what's called a wall sign is not, doesn't qualify as a residential subdivision entry sign. In other words, there is the entry sign that's at the front.
Yeah.
Right.
But this second one, which is really functioning as another kind of subdivision entry sign, we're not calling it that.
No, we're not. And then also in the development agreement, we did give them, in the agreement, we allowed them to put that monument sign. You know what I mean? We did put that as part of the development.
So they can have to.
Well, we actually didn't put the wall part. That was not, but we did give them permission for the monument part.
It's like normally is their sign. On normal sign.
That normally is.
All right. Yeah, it's out.
Mr. Chairman, I think I have a question, and this is really more for our staff, and the question about the location of the monument sign being off premise. I know that was part of the development agreement. Does it need to be specified in this motion, or because it's specific to that sign that was granted? Because it is not on the resident, it's not on the premises of the development. It's located away from it. Normally the code would be against our code. Do we need to specify something saying that is there in the motion?
I would say yes. I would say yes, that in your motion, you are recommending approval pursuant to the development agreement.
Any other comments or questions regarding this item from anyone on the commission? Is staff comfortable with us treating this as one item?
If you're comfortable with treating it as one item.
I'm very comfortable. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so I invite a motion on 9A and B. Oh, come on, guys, all the way down here.
He said he was very comfortable.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that planning and zoning recommend approval of a request by Keller Custom Signs for approval of signage for Bandera Oak subdivision located at the intersection of Access Drive and State Highway 16. For both sections, A, residential subdivision entry sign, making note to identify that it is off premise as granted by the development agreement. And section B, the wall sign pursuant to municipal code chapter 66 sign section 66/51.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Ron will second that. Discussion further, Alex?
That's right.
Ron? Anyone else with discussion on this item? The motion is to recommend approval of the request by Keller Custom Signs. The signage for Bandera Oak subdivision at the intersection of Access Drive and Bandera Road, including the residential subdivision entry sign pursuant to Code Chapter 66 signs, Section 43 residential subdivision entry signs, making reference to the off-site nature of this pursuant to the development agreement, as well as the wall sign pursuant to Code Chapter 66 signs, Section 51 commercial signs, paragraph B wall signs. All in favor of this motion, please signal aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is approved and May the 13th. All right. Number 10 tonight is discussion and action on the preliminary and final plats establishing Leslie Road, a 3.038 acre tract of land described as captioned in this item. Any particular reason why this is Leslie and Rainbow, basically, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. The naming of it gets confusing. But this is both preliminary and final plats that came to us. This is a property near, I guess, adjacent to Tractor Supply, would be the way to say it. Are there any comments or discussion points or questions regarding this item from anyone on the commission?
What was the zoning on this parcel?
Before.
Okay,
Chairman, I'll make a comment if I may.
please go ahead, Alex.
Given the location of this property and the zoning, I think it's very appropriate. We're looking at the conceptual design plan, which defines the building and the way it's situated. What it
Well,
looks
actually,
like.
we're on the platform.
But, oh, I'm jumping ahead.
You're jumping ahead.
I'm gonna make it.
Hold that thought.
I'm holding that thought. That looks good, thank you, sir. Both versions.
All right, if there are no comments or questions, we can have a motion on item number 10.
I'll do the motion to recommend approval. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Motion to recommend, motion to recommend approval of item 10, the preliminary and final plat establishing Leslie Road, being a 3.038 acre tract of land described in deed of trust recorded in document number 201-900-14929, real property records of Bear County, Texas, more particularly described as DCAD property ID number 1334698.
I'll second.
Thank you, Richard. Discussion, anything to discuss on it, Ann? No comments, Ann? You're good on the motion. Is Richard? Anyone else? The motion is to recommend approval of preliminary and final plats establishing Leslie Road, 3.0 acre tract of land as described. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye. Oh, sorry, we got a second from Richard. All in favor of this motion, please signal aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's approved. We'll go to council next Thursday, May. Brings us to our final item tonight, number 11, which is discussion and action on a request by Helotes for approval of a conceptual design plan for Astro Home, a business specializing in the sale of sheet rock at 11978 Leslie Road, including site plan, building design, and exterior lighting. Alex, I believe you have a comment.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I was going to say, I think the design information is appropriate to the area of the city it's in. I think we've had multiple times where we've requested developers come and do a wainscot or something to break up the facade. They've accomplished that as well. The color codes are very much in line with what we are hoping for and expecting in our city, and especially, like I said, in that particular area. Looks like the building is gonna be a little bit off angle on the property. And I was just, the only thing I was curious as to why it was kind of tucked on one side and didn't know whether or not anybody knew whether they were gonna develop the other part later on, and if that's why the building was situated at a catty corner of the property like that. I know the notes indicate that our city arborist will have lots of discussion with regard to trees, and I'm sure everything will comply in that regard, so I'm in favor.
Thank you. Does staff know anything regarding the placement of the footprint?
No, that's the question we can ask that.
I do know the slope of the property, and I wonder if that maybe that's where the trees are in that corner, and that's why they're trying to preserve them there. But I didn't know if there was anything specific about it.
And currently they anticipate, well, looks like one side they will be back to us.
That is correct.
Other comments or questions on this item?
Chairman, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
I'm assuming that concrete hammerhead in the back is for semi-turnaround?
Can you repeat that? I couldn't.
That the concrete hammerhead on the back of the property is for, because I would assume that they're gonna be offloading pallets of drywall along the side, of a semi-tractor trailer.
Right, for delivery purposes.
That they would be able to, that's enough room for them to actually turn around.
Yeah, yes, I mean, that's what our position on that is. Of course, like I said, when they bring the building plans and so forth, staff will review that to make sure, you know what I mean, that does have enough room. But yeah, they will have delivery trucks, semis or whatever, delivery trucks to deliver the product.
And Mr. Chair, the only other thing I looked at or noticed was that the sign height from the front of the building.
So they're not bringing signs for us yet. I don't believe, right?
Yeah.
Even though there's a sign picture, it's really just for illustration purposes.
That is correct.
Okay.
We'll be back.
Given that semis and large trucks, you will look at peak hour trips for those vehicles?
Yes.
And this is, to be clear, is sales only, not fabrication. That's not.
Correct. That is correct.
Is there a motion, if there are no further comments or questions, a motion on this item number 11 would be welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Adam.
I move that we recommend the city council the request by Helotes Inc. for approval of conceptual design plan for Astro Homes Inc. located at 11978 Leslie Road, as presented.
Is there a second? Ron, and that includes all the pieces, right, Alex? Site plan, building design, like. Discussion on the item, Alex?
No, sir, thank you.
Huh? Anybody with comments on the motion?
No.
So the motion is to recommend approval of the request by Helotes for a conceptual design plan for Astro Home, 11978 Leslie Road, including site plan, building design, and exterior lighting. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is approved. I want to thank everybody for their perseverance through this long agenda. And your comments, very welcome. Thank you very much. Ron, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion to adjourn?
Is there a second to adjourn?
I'll second, correct.
You got it? So all in favor of adjourning, signal aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 8:14. Feel better, Ann?
Thank you, appreciate it. Aye.